Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Fun with Adorno. What, you may ask, who is Adorno, and why would anything he does be fun? Well, that's an issue, let me tell you. Theodor Adorno was a German philosopher and musicologist who is noted for his total incomprehensibility, which in philosophy is kind of a good thing because it means that people can admire you even though no one's quite sure what you're trying to say. And he was famous for being a super duper highfalutin left-wing intellectual, anti-fascist, anti-consumerist, he was anti a lot of things. He was kind of just anti. He was a pupil of Alban Berg. He was not pro, he was pro the Second Viennese School, and Mahler and people like that. In fact, he wrote a little book on Mahler, which is quite interesting. I mean, it has some really fascinating observations that would be all the more fascinating if he could have expressed them in about 1/90th the verbiage that he actually uses. He is impenetrably dense, whether you're in German or in English. He writes those long, long paragraphs. So I'm going to share with you one paragraph of Adorno. Maybe we'll do a few paragraphs of Adorno just for fun. I mean, and that's where the fun comes in, because it's so serious. If you can understand it, it's just delightful. And it's all over the place. You know, when he talks about music, it's social commentary and philosophical criticism and eschatology and, whatever you want, ology, ontology, phlebotomy, whatever you want to call it, he does it. So in one paragraph. But they're long paragraphs. So here we have Adorno's Essays on Music with a new translations by Susan Gillespie, the poor woman. Oh, my God. And one of the things he detested was jazz, which he thought was toxic. I mean, just poisoning, toxic thing of mass culture. So he writes this thing called Farewell to Jazz, because, he was always predicting the downfall of something or other. And I'm just going to read the third paragraph of Farewell to Jazz. It's a long paragraph, but like I said, we'll have some fun with it, I think. So you ready? Jazz was the Gebrauchmusik of the haute bourgeoisie of the post-war period. How's that for stuffing a lot into one sentence? Gebrauchmusik is utility music. That's what, that was famously Hindemith's invention, when it is part of the Neue Sachlichkeit, the new objectivity, or, as Stravinsky would have just called it, neoclassicism. And it's music that was useful, that you could do things with, that you played and sang, and that sort of had a purpose, rather than just to be some sort of aesthetic abstraction. So that was Gebrauchmusik. And the haute bourgeoisie, of course, we all know who those people were. That was anybody who had money and wasn't a left-wing intellectual, according to Adorno. So let's start again. We're still on the first sentence of this very long paragraph. I mean, he's in German. So, German paragraphs tend to be really, really long, and all the verbs go at the end, which really makes them kind of complicated. I remember when I was studying German, because I am a German historian by training, in case you didn't know that. That's my master's, my first master's. And I remember I had a tutor to help me with German. And I asked him, I said, what do you people do when you've got to have all these verbs at the end of the sentence? He says, well, you got to look at the end of the sentence and go back and read it again. I said, that is just the worst way to have to read something. So, and academic writing is, it's bad anyway in any language, but in German it's special. Anyway, jazz was the Gebrauchmusik of the haute bourgeoisie of the post-war period. Two things in tandem guaranteed its success. For one thing, it was available for immediate consumption. It registered the development of art music only in stunted reflexes, generally of impressionist harmonies. It remained danceable on and on, even for the unmusical person, thanks to its basic rhythm, always marked by the bass drum, even where the audacious cadences of hot music, syncopation as principle, and the burgeoning joy brought on by triple rhythms inserted into a 4-bar meter seemed to loosen all the bonds of upbringing and custom. Zucht und Sitte, German here. as if that helps to give us the German originals. So there you have it. It's very interesting, actually, that his criticism of jazz is almost identical to Berlioz's criticism of Italian music, which is simple rhythms marked by the bass drum. You can read about it in Berlioz's Evenings with the Orchestra. You know, some things never change. They really don't. Anyway, nothing was difficult to understand, and if the factory-made product seemed alien to the consumer, it was equally easy to use. Its excesses, however, recalled the erotic ones of the cinema, those undressing scenes, dubious trips to the beach, and ambiguous situations, all of which, under the dictates of a censorship that is deeply ingrained in them, stop short of final consequences. Ooh, baby. So we've gone from jazz to erotic cinema. Terrible, isn't it? But at the same time, jazz presented itself as progressive, modern, and up-to-date, which of course it was. There was a world economic resonance in the cheap foreign locales that could be imported at will from Montevideo, Waikiki, and Shanghai. The petit bourgeois narrowness of dance lessons, polka and galop, seemed left far behind. The sexless saxophone, squawking, declared its quasi-agreement with risque things. And the harmonies, now mellow, now biting, not only had a stimulating effect, but evoked distant memories, at once scary and comforting, of new music's realm of dissonance, which was otherwise avoided so assiduously, and with which, it seemed, one could safely associate only here. As if that were not enough, the arts and crafts, jazz was characterized by the fact that, despite its transparently industrial origins, it was distinguished superficially from vulgar music. That consumption could be disguised as art appreciation. The concertizing jazz symphony orchestras are the obvious expression of this, or, even more to the point, the technique of improvisation, which developed together with syncopation and the false bar, Scheintakt. Sounds so evil in German, doesn't it? The virtuoso saxophonist or clarinetist or even percussionist who made his audacious leaps in between the marked beats of the measure, who distorted the accents and dragged out the sounds in bold glissandi, he, at least, should have been exempted from industrialization. His realm was considered to be the realm of freedom. Here, the solid wall between production and reproduction was evidently demolished, the longed-for immediacy restored, the alienation of man and music mastered out of vital force. Oh, that was one paragraph. And in it, as you can tell, some of his big themes pop up: industrialization, mass culture, the evils of all of those, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. But I thought I would give you a little sample. It's always fun also when you're reading about the stuff he hates, because of course there isn't anything of substance in anything he says. Nothing at all. It's all just rank speculation and you know, hot air, essentially, opinion, and inaccurate opinion at that too, as often as not. But hey, he was major, and you may come across him. The reason I bring him up is because in your journeys through the wonderful world of classical music, people like to quote him. They like to quote him when they want to sound serious and profound and intellectual, and they usually bring up Adorno. He's become an adjective. I mean, if you look at scholarly literature, there's an Adornian theory of something. Nobody knows what an Adornian theory of anything is, by the way. They have no clue, because it's impossible to define. But if you take the time to try and define it, then you've spent your first 750 pages of your thesis, and you haven't even gotten to the topic that you're talking about. So, I mean, I've had to actually edit papers and essays that begin with the Adornian something or other, and I always use lots of scratching it out and because it doesn't mean anything. Nor does his opinion on jazz, particularly, other than the fact that it's his opinion on jazz. And he has the same point of view with many, 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 many other things. And maybe we'll check in once in a while if you found that entertaining, as I really did, because it's just full of loaded words and dangling red herrings and things that you could, jump up and down about. Maybe we'll do a little more. It's up to you. It's not exactly bedtime reading, but it is fun. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.